And as the sun sets on the Davos summit, the people of China are stuck in a nightmare, which is only turning uglier and playing on repeat. A nightmare called the Wuhan Virus. The Wuhan killer continues to spread in the country, infecting anyone that comes in its way. The situation is so bad that even the Chinese president, who rarely acknowledges his regime's weaknesses, is now saying that China is indeed in a weak spot. On the 18th of January, Xi Jinping virtually greeted the residents of a retirement home and spoke at length about the pace at which the infections are spreading. He said the pandemic outbreak is very violent and very quick, and it has stressed the medical workers on the front lines. You have to watch this.
This wave of pandemic outbreak is very violent. The outbreak is very quick. The majority of medical workers have been in the two lines of battles: prevention and control of the pandemic, and daily treatment for long hours with high intensity and in overload work to ensure the safety of people's lives and health. You have made a significant contribution. You have worked very hard.
And this statement was followed by another. In another video call to the local officials, Xi Jinping said that he was worried about the situation in rural China, in the hinterlands, which is ill-equipped to deal with this virus. Let me quote from his exact statement. "We must improve medical care for those most vulnerable to the virus in the rural areas. Epidemic prevention and control has entered a new stage, and we are still in a period that requires great efforts. We must address the shortcomings in the epidemic prevention and control in the rural areas." And by the way, it's not just the Chinese president. Even his officials are making rare admissions now about how rural China is lagging in pandemic prevention. Listen to this now.
Rural areas are the top priority for the prevention and control of the current epidemic. It is necessary to grasp the operation of the pandemic prevention system, coordinate various medical resources, protect the needs of the public for medical care and medication, manage the elderly and children and other key populations, and make up for the shortcomings of the prevention and control of the pandemic in rural areas.
Just how do we perceive such remarks? I ask this because it is rare for the Chinese president and his officials to talk about the shortcomings of their regime. Over the years, they have tried to project a pleasant image about the state of affairs in China, more so during the Wuhan virus pandemic. So when Xi Jinping talks about lapses in China's preparedness, questions are bound to be asked. What made Xi Jinping say this? Is it the fear of another wave of protests? It certainly seems like that. Have a look at this headline on your screen now. Chinese citizens, especially those who have lost their relatives recently, are becoming increasingly angry over the government's failure. They are slamming the authorities for failing to protect the elderly. Reuters has carried a detailed report on their plight and the anger on the ground. And let me quote from some of the most telling statements. The first one is of a high school teacher who lost her 85-year-old father to the virus. And here's how she expressed her grief. "We wanted things to open up, but not to open up like this. Not at the expense of so many elderly people, which has a huge impact on every family. If only they used the resources used for controlling the virus for protecting the elderly." That's not all. Statement number 2, this one is of a marketing agent. She lost 2 grandparents and a great uncle to this virus. She says, and I'm quoting, "It should have been a very solemn and respectful situation. You imagine it like that, but in fact, it felt like queuing up in the hospital. I'm not saying reopening is not good. I just think they should have given more time for preparatory work." We have another statement. This one is of a Beijing resident who lost 4 relatives to this virus. He says, and I'm quoting, "People have not had the opportunity to say farewell to their loved ones. If we cannot live a decent life, we should at least be able to have a decent death. It's very sad. It indeed is sad. Which is why many Chinese citizens are now taking the COVID-19 fight into their own hands. A report by the Straits Times saying many Chinese citizens have given up on the authorities. They are using social media now to facilitate donations and secure urgent medical supplies to those in need. Basically, they are trying to figure out how to survive on their own because the efforts being made by their government are clearly not enough. It is truly a tragic state of affairs. The Chinese government has stopped serving the people are now serving themselves. And our thoughts go out to them. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.